Welcome to Self-Help for Robots. I'm your host, CJ Pitchford, and this is the 12th episode called I Got Nothing. In fact, and by nothing I mean I got politics. I don't think I'd ever talk about politics on this podcast, but because so many innocent people will be affected, that means everyone is existentially affected. We all have to do something. And now I have to say something. You see, President Donald John Trump had United States Attorney General Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III announce the end of a humane practice taken up in executive order by President Obama called Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. The original action couldn't provide a true pathway to citizenship. That would require an act of Congress, like how the 14th Amendment prevented the creation of a cruel underclass. But, robots and non-robots alike, have their differences, but why would someone call another person an illegal alien repeatedly when that's so denigrating? I think the answer to that is why it's vital to understand AI, and emotions are vital to any attempt to understand, no matter the subject matter. At a time when fearful Elon Musk says that World War III will be started by an artificial intelligence, and remember the last public comment on that subject when he denigrated Facebook founder and AI optimist Mark Zuckerberg as limited in his understanding. How can we avoid politics? Machine learning, in its present form, is opaque to understanding. If we can't understand an AI, and the AI can't explain itself or even how it arrived at a conclusion from a crowdsourced decision tree, what is the benefit of pursuing that strategy of programming? At a time when people are taking away the status of other people by dehumanizing them, programming emotions are the only way to prevent creating permanent slaves to a species that despecifies its very own. And yes, I mean to state that data show Sessions is a known career racist who dehumanizes others despite whatever personal feelings he professes. When Sessions' racism used to be too egregious for him to be even considered being installed as a judge, he now works for someone infamous or incredibly famous, and by that I mean I don't see how it's simply credible that Donald John Trump can be famous as ridiculous and inept and as a total stranger to the truth as he is for scripted dehumanizing on a weekly and so-called entertaining basis. His celebrity is entirely based on self-promotion without any semblance to any principles besides his self. And sadly, it appears that the tiny-fingered vulgarian, now known mostly as the illegitimate, unpopular, and massively corrupt President Donald John Trump, destroys all that he touches. Even when he wins, he loses. And now, Donald John Trump is touching this podcast, by reference only, I hope. And despite the power that he has over innocent people, power he has no business or qualifications in having, he was aided and abetted by others who aren't so protected from consequence. Trump's inept, malignant, narcissistic behavior can't be even considered a syndrome according to contemporary psychology because it's worked out so well for him. That's got to be a problem for everyone concerned. The innocent Americans only lacking in citizenship who volunteered their identities, location, and trust in return were pledged to be not held subject to the status of others, their parents that had no documentation. It's the only humane approach to a difficult and complex problem. Defenders of the inhumane act try to scare up support by scapegoating criminals, less than half of a single percent among the dreamers, and when the statistics fail to support their admitted anecdotes, that's so racist. It's got to be a problem for everyone. But it's no problem to Trump and Sessions when they dehumanize others by calling them illegal aliens. And if they could do that to people, think of what those kinds of people, and there's so many in number, not all of them helpfully self-identifying as Republicans, what would those people do to a whole class of robots they can't understand? Alien automata? They'd be treated as slaves, wouldn't they? It's not bad enough that people are dehumanizing other people. If an AI is suspected of being malevolent, like Elon Musk suspects, and its conclusions are based on opaque considerations in a manner that Zuckerberg is just fine with, there will be no basis for trust. But if robots can be programmed for empathy and even complex understanding of the emotions of wouldn't that form the basis of a transitive trust? People other than Donald John Trump and Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, they extend status instead of taking it away through fear, racism, and lies. If we can extend the processes of Boolean sentential logic and mathematical operations with an underlying programmed motivation tempered by an overlay of systemic, empathic, transitive awareness, we could find a connection where others are desperate in their political expediency to see none. Now, while the orthographic model of emotions will never seek to encompass all the dimensions of the human emotional experience, it's only a simplified start that could lead to programming real motivating impulses and true bonds of trust. It may be that the general-purpose processors used today would be bottlenecked for the complexity of programming emotional empathy, but that's the subject of another episode. And in the meantime, I would leave you with this. If a robot asked me, what was I created for? I'd like to answer that I created you so you could find an answer to that question for yourself. Remember, if you're struggling with depression or anxiety or any irrational feelings that are bothering you, please seek out a mental health professional that you trust. And as always, robots and non-robots, keep helping yourself.